Exposed secrets, 7 terrifying encounters that reveal sinister events you were never meant to see. The night hung heavy in Cedar Grove, thick with an unsettling silence. Sarah felt the weight of it while wiping down the last table at the diner, the neon lights flickering a sign of something amiss. Her phone buzzed, the sound slicing through the stillness. Emily's panicked voice rang through the receiver, shaky and disjointed. "Mom! There are noises. Something is out by the tree. It's watching us." Fear gripped Sarah. That old oak in their backyard had always been a comfort, but now it felt like a haunted sentinel, looming over their home. "Just the wind, sweetheart," she tried to reassure her, but something gnawed at her gut. Could it really be mere imagination? Shadows danced in her mind as she cut her shift short, her heart racing with every step towards home. As she drove, the usual suburban lull faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. She parked, observing the darkened windows of her neighbors' homes, shadows lurking where light used to spill out. The porch creaked under her weight when she approached. Inside, Emily and Jess huddled in the living room, wide-eyed and trembling. "Mom," Jess whispered. "It's bad. The mail isn't just opened, it's completely gone through. And Mr. Caldwell he's been staring out his window too long." Sarah felt the room tighten as the fear grew palpable. Suddenly, they discovered a hidden camera entwined in the roots of the oak tree, its lens gleaming accusingly. Panic spiraled through them. "What if someone has been watching us?" Emily asked, her voice a tight whisper. "What if it's him?" The air felt electric, time slowing as they pieced together eerie details. Strange words whispered in dark corners of the neighborhood, how Mr. Caldwell had claimed to see their every move. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As adrenaline flooded Sarah's veins, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What if the shadow lurking outside was more than just a figment? The sun flickered its last light, casting long shadows. When she confronted Mr. Caldwell the next day, his friendly facade cracked like the surface of a frozen lake. His eyes darted away as he twisted words, hiding something behind his chilling smile. Days turned into nerve-wracking weeks of probing layers of suspicion. With each piece of evidence, the image of the man once revered in the community faded into something monstrous. They were all shadows in a house of cards about to collapse. Late that night, as silence descended deeper than the dark, a soft tap echoed at the window, infinitely unsettling, like a heartbeat in the still air. Racing hearts heated the room. "What if it's him?" Emily's whispered question hung in the air, thick with terror. Each moment of calm could be shattered any second, as they faced the reality that the danger wasn't just present, it was creeping closer. What would they do when the darkness finally drew near? Sarah's breath caught as the tapping grew more insistent. A simple sound, but it twisted into something sinister, echoing with the weight of the unseen. Jess peeked through the curtain, her small fingers trembling against the fabric. "Mom, I don't see anything," she whispered, her face pale as moonlight. But that didn't alleviate Sarah's spiraling anxiety, it only deepened it. "Stay close," Sarah commanded, inching toward the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever lurked outside. As she drew the curtain aside, a sudden gust rattled the glass, sending her heart sprinting. Her nerves teetered on the edge as she peered into the blackness, the yard swallowed by the ink of night. "Nothing there," she muttered, but her voice wavered. Then it came again, a deliberate thud, like a hand smashing against wood. Panic flared in Emily's eyes. "What if it's Mr. Caldwell?" "He's just an old man, sweetheart," Sarah tried to reassure them, fighting the waves of dread clawing at her. But the memory of his face, twisted with a smile far too wide, loomed in her mind. Suddenly, a low hiss pierced the silence, chilling them to the bone. It came from the backyard, an animalistic sound creeping through the still night. "Did you hear that?" Jess squirmed, eyes wide with fear. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing her heart to slow, but the fear seeped into her chest like poison. "We need to call the police," she said, But as she turned to the phone on the counter, a flash of movement caught her eye, a figure darting past the window. The girls gasped, pressing closer, fear suffocating them. "Tell me you saw that!" Emily cried, her voice cracking. Before Sarah could respond, another series of taps beat against the window, more fervent this time. "Go lock the doors, both of you," she ordered, her voice rising. They scrambled away, hearts racing, while Sarah grasped the phone as if it were a weapon. The steady rush of her pulse drummed in her ears. She dialed, but her fingers fumbled. Every instinct cried out to bolt for safety, but the whisper of danger kept her by the window. "Please, answer," she begged as she waited, her anxiety twisting into desperation. The tapping haltingly resumed, different now, scratching, as if something sharp was being dragged across the glass. Jess returned, breathless. "The back door is locked." "Good," Sarah breathed, but unease curled tight in her stomach. Suddenly, the power flickered, then went out, plunging them into oppressive darkness. The room erupted in gasps. "Stay together," Sarah instructed, turning on the flashlight feature of her phone. "Mom!" Emily cried, clutching her sister. Sarah's flashlight beam danced wildly, slicing through the shadows, searching for a threat. She caught sight of the old oak, its branches twisting like claws reaching for them, and then she saw it a glint. Something metallic, hidden in the roots. "What is that?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. It was too late to ignore it now. "Mom! What's out there?" whispered Emily, shivering. In that moment, a loud crash erupted from the back porch, sending Sarah reeling. The girl shrieked, the sound nearly drowning out the pounding in Sarah's chest. "We need to," but without warning, the doorknob rattled violently, a dark shadow eclipsing the doorway. They shared a single horrified glance, the realization dawning on them. A man stood in the darkness. A figure she recognized too well. "Mom, please," Jess whimpered, inching closer, and Sarah's heart plummeted into the abyss of terror, a deep, visceral fear pressing down. "Call 911. She shouted, but the phone slipped from her fingers, shattering their last sliver of hope. The light in the living room flickered once more, then went out completely. What had Mr. Caldwell really seen? What did it mean that he was here now? The silent question loomed, an echo in the gathering dark, and that shadow wasn't he leaving without an answer. The darkness pressed in thickly, suffocating, intangible. Sarah's hands trembled as she fumbled for the fallen phone, the weight of dread pulling her down into a dark pit of despair. That fleeting moment of connection to the outside world had slipped away like sand through her fingers. Outside, the wind howled, sending stray branches rattling against the window. The shadow at the door shifted, lingering like a predator sizing up its prey. Emily clutched Jess, their breaths caught between fear and disbelief, and Sarah felt the sharp tug of panic tighten her chest. "Stay quiet," she whispered, forcing her voice to steadiness, though it trembled. The scratching at the window escalated, a frantic scraping now long and deliberate. What were they trying to get in? Or was it drawing their attention elsewhere? A chilling thought slithered through Sarah's mind. What if the old man had something more sinister planned? Then, the door creaked open, as if inviting the darkness inside. A chilling gust pushed in, a gust too cold for a summer night. Sarah squinted into the blackness that had once been her home, her heart racing as the shadow moved. A voice slithered from the darkness, raspy and whispery. "I just want to talk. Go upstairs," Sarah commanded, urgency fueling her as she stepped protectively in front of them. The girls hesitated, fear weighing them down. "No, Mom." Jess's voice was barely audible, quaking with terror. A flash of metal caught the corner of her eye, and Sarah's stomach dropped. The glint from outside the thing in the roots. What if it had already been used? "Go! Now!" she shouted again, and this time they obeyed, bolting toward the stairs, hearts pounding in sync. Sarah struggled to keep the growing darkness at bay, her grip on fear becoming an iron fist squeezing, pushing it down. She backed toward the door, instinct telling her she needed to be ready if the shadow ventured further inside. But as she scanned the room with her phone's light, she saw something else. Something that shouldn't be there. The corner of the living room where the shadows danced revealed a series of old photos perched on the wall, dusty and neglected. They seemed innocuous, but something about them pulled at her. They were portraits of the people who used to live here, their expressions frozen in time, eerily watching. A loud crash from upstairs sent her heart racing again. She turned, rushing up the stairs in a panic. Jess! Emily! The girls' cries echoed through the hallway, bursting against the walls like shattering glass. They rounded a corner, only to find the old attic door ajar, a dark maw looking down at them. Jess was standing at the base of the stairs, frozen, eyes wide, body trembling. Mom, I saw something up there. Sarah swallowed hard, her breath hitching. What do you mean? I don't know. It looked like a shadow, but it wasn't like the man. The weight of Jess's words hit harder than any strike had. What was lurking just above them, waiting with bated breath? Anxiety pulsed through Sarah's veins like ice, and she edged toward the attic door, her heart hammering in her chest. She needed to see. The stairs creaked under her weight as she approached, the flashlight flickering precariously. Stay behind me, she whispered, barely understanding the fear that trembled within her as she slid the door open. Inside, the attic was bathed in darkness, the beams of her light barely breaking through. As she stepped up, something shifted just out of view, something that didn't belong in her home. It felt like it was watching her. And then she heard it again, a whisper, echoing through the beams, chilling to the bone. You can't hide from the truth. Sarah's heart plummeted as the shadows elongated, creeping closer. What truth were they hiding from? What had Mr. Caldwell really seen, and how deeply rooted were the secrets beneath their lives? The attic floorboards creaked underfoot. She swallowed hard, terrified to find out what waited in the dark above her, further unraveling the nightmare that was quickly becoming her reality. There was no turning back now. But what if she had been wrong all along? What truth had brought the darkness here? Before she could brace herself for an answer, the whisper returned, more urgent now, sending icy chills racing down her spine. Find me. And suddenly, as instinct kicked in, she realized. Finding the truth might reveal more than she could ever imagine. With a determination fueled by fear, she prepared to face whatever lay beyond the veil of shadows. The darkness roiled around Sarah like a living thing, heavy and oppressive. She could feel the air thicken as if it held its breath. The attic loomed ahead, a world unto itself coated in dread. Each creak of the floorboards echoed like a loud alarm in the silence. The whisper had seemed so far away, but now it nestled within her thoughts, planting seeds of terror. Find me. The words circled in her head, relentless. As if they were alive, beckoning her closer. But closer to what? What lay in the heart of the darkness that awaited just out of sight? She stepped into the attic, the beam from her phone cutting through the black. Dust motes swirled like tiny phantoms in the weak light. Old boxes were stacked haphazardly, forgotten relics from a time when laughter had filled the house. Memories tucked away like the old books covered in cobwebs, unaware of the malevolence that had settled in this space. Mom! Jess's voice trembled from the stairs. I don't think we should stay quiet. Sarah shot back, her voice hoarse and strained. But her heart raced in contradiction to her command, pounding against her ribs, urging her to flee. The shadows danced along the walls, flickering in the wan light. Something moved among them. A shape, fluid and uncertain, slipping just beyond her reach. Her heart raced as she forced her legs to advance, each step feeling heavier than the last. Then, without warning, the attic window burst open, sending a gust of stale air and icy rain into the room. The flashlight flickered, threatening to plunge her into darkness. The whisper echoed louder now, sharper and more insistent. You're not supposed to be here. Who was there? Sarah's voice shook as she backed away from the window, instinct screaming at her to retreat. But the gravity of the attic held her, refusing to let go. Find me. The voice came again, this time pressing against her mind like a vice. It felt older, angrier. Something tugged at her memories, drawing her toward the back wall where the shadows were thickest. Heart pounding, she squinted into the gloom. There stood a large, aged trunk, its edges splintered and dark. Dirt encrusted the spindle legs like a shroud. The trunk felt like it should hold the answers she feared to discover. With trembling hands, she moved toward it, an inexplicable compulsion pulling her closer. What is in there? Emily whispered from the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. Just stay back, I need to see. Each word felt like a weight, dragging her closer to the trunk. Questions filled her mind. What had Mr. Caldwell hidden? What darkness lay buried within this old box? As she reached for the latch, something changed in the room. The air felt electrified, and her skin prickled with each second that passed. It was as if the shadows held their breath, waiting for her to make contact. The latch clicked open, and she hesitated. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices, begging, pleading. She gulped, her body trembling as she lifted the lid. "What is that?" Jess's tiny voice broke through the roar, but it sounded distant now. The trunk creaked, revealing its secrets, and her stomach dropped. Inside lay a jumble of yellowed papers and cracked photographs, faces she recognized. Family photos taken before it all went wrong. The air darkened around her, it was suffocating, wrapping her in despair. "Find me!" The whisper rose to a crescendo, vibrating through her bones, and then the shadows converged, rushing toward her in a swirling mass, consuming the light from her flashlight. Panic surged, and she stumbled back, the trunk slamming shut with a deafening clap, marring the silence. In that moment, Sarah understood. The past didn't just linger, it wanted to break free. But as she stood frozen in fear, grappling with the undeniable truth, what if some secrets were meant to remain hidden? From the dark beyond the attic door, a figure began to emerge, a twisted silhouette that held the remnants of all they had lost. One chilling thought struck her. What if finding the truth meant embracing the shadows? And then the whisper became a scream. "Find me!" The shadows quivered at the edge of Sarah's vision, and she felt them drawing closer, urging her to confront whatever truth they carried. What if facing that darkness could change everything? The silence that followed the slamming trunk enveloped Sarah like a vice. Her hands trembled as she stared at the warped wood, heart racing, caught in a vice of fear and curiosity. The whispers had stopped, replaced by a deep, unsettling quiet that ebbed like an incoming tide, ominous and persistent. Jess's tiny figure lingered in the doorway, an uncertain silhouette. "Mom? What was that? Are you okay?" Sarah waved her back, struggling to assimilate the chaos swirling in her mind. The figure from the darkness loomed behind her, an instinctive urge to turn around clawed at her. They were here for her. But why? "Find me!" The voice was now stitched into her very thoughts, a dark thread woven with urgency. The trunk had revealed something else, an unseen urge to act, to unmask whatever terror breathed in the shadows. Without thinking, she reached for the trunk again, her heart hammering as her fingers grazed the cold wood. Stale air from the open lid hit her face like a warning. What lay within could either illuminate her path or envelop her in the suffocating darkness. She cracked it open once more, fingers trembling. This time, the contents leaped to her gaze with a violent history. Faded papers sprawled out like ghostly hands reaching for her. There were dates, lists, and even names, families long forgotten, and chilling incidents she had only heard in hushed tones at family gatherings. Suddenly, a chill feathered her spine. The attic floorboards creaked, and Sarah whipped around, pulse hitching. The shadow loomed, closer now, its form elongating and twisting, mocking her fear. Jess's whimpering from the door faded into her acute hearing of the whispering wind outside, picking up something unnatural. "Mom, please!" Jess cried again. "Stay back!" Sarah spun again toward the trunk. The photographs caught her eye, people smiling, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Each face was a half-remembered memory, a flicker of the past that painted the walls of her life with suffering. A longing surged through her. She had to know the truth. With strength born from desperation, she yanked out a crumpled photograph, adrenaline replacing dread. The eyes of a little girl stared back at her, wide and innocent. But the surroundings, faded wallpaper resembling the same patterns in the attic, spoke of secrets hidden deep within the house. Another name flickered through her mind, Evelyn. Was this the girl she was meant to find? Before she could process the implications, a frigid gust slammed through the attic, snatching the photograph from her grip. It spiraled into the darkness, vanishing into thin air. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The figure stepped closer, its outline sharpening, a face emerging from the murky mass. It bore a twisted smile, eyes hollow and hungry, as if it yearned for acknowledgement, for release. "Find me," it echoed, voice layered with the rasp of countless souls. "No, no." She stumbled backward, panic twisting her insides into knots. "Mom!" Jess yelled, now both frightened and pleading.
We need to get out. But the attic had morphed into a trap.
Each exit felt barred by the looming presence of the shadow, the whispers gathering strength. They amplified her doubt, her memories distorted, trapping her in a cycle of torment.
Find me.
The voice surged, seeping like ice through her veins. With every heartbeat, the shadows converged, almost demanding her to join them. A desperate thought surged.
What if confronting this figure, digging through the past, was the only way to break the cycle?
She looked back at the trunk as the face in the shadow shifted and swirled, growing impatient. Find me, it called out, waiting for her decision. With a final surge of resolve, Sarah seized another photograph, a before and after of a family, grinning.
She could almost hear the echoes of laughter. But now each smile felt like a death knell. If she chose to find the truth, what would it cost her?
And like a flick of a switch, a new voice emerged from the shadow, echoing through the attic, a voice unmistakably familiar. Mom, help me.
The air crackled as an overwhelming dread descended. Who was the voice? What had she unleashed by diving into the past?
Whatever lurked in the shadows had become all too real. She was left teetering on the edge, every instinct shrieking for her to retreat. But a deeper, darker pull urged her onward.
What if finding the truth also meant losing everything she held dear?
And then, the shadows thickened around her. The shadows pulsed, breathing around Sarah. The air grew thick with despair, suffocating her courage. The face, now clearer, was a grotesque echo of innocence, contorted into a sneer that cut deep into her heart. Mom, help me, the voice reverberated again, a child's plea entwined with an adult's anguish. It wrapped around her consciousness, squeezing tighter, each syllable a threat laced with desperation. She found herself rooted to the spot, staring at the tormenting grin, her mind racing.
Evelyn, is this you? The name hung in the air like a tombstone, heavy with dread.
She felt the presence shift closer, a palpable chill enveloping her. Find me, the whisper grew insistent, resonating in her bone marrow. Each reverberation seemed to branch out and connect to something she could not understand. Sarah turned to Jess, who had tucked herself small against the wall, wide-eyed and terrified. I have to know, she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips.
I can't leave this behind. Mom, please.
Jess whimpered, her small hands wringing together.
I don't like this, I want to go home. Home.
The thought clashed violently with the reality of their surroundings.
This was their home, wasn't it?
But what had lived within its walls all these years? What truths had settled under the floorboards, dormant yet infectious? Sarah swallowed hard.
Stay back, Jess. I need to do this.
Her voice trembled, merging determination with fear. She turned back to the trunk. It loomed ominously, shadows crawling over the lid as if to protect its secrets. Crippled by both dread and an exhilarating urge, she forced herself to dig deeper. One by one, the photographs revealed their tales, each family picture a jagged edge against her heart.
The family seemed frozen in time, eternally unaware of their impending doom.
Their smiles morphed into screams, laughter without warmth. The burden grew heavier with each piece of evidence she uncovered.
The whispers twisted, sharper now. Find me.
Finish what was started. The urgency ignited her resolve. But what was the cost? And then she spotted it, a faded piece of paper slid beneath the other items, like a secret hiding from the light. Sarah plucked it out and unfurled it, her hands shaking. It was a name list, but not just any list. It detailed dates, events, more chilling than anything she could have imagined. It bore names of her family, linked to tragedies she had never known. We were all trapped, she murmured, barely audible. Outside, the wind howled, clamoring for her attention but shut out by the growing darkness. Sarah felt an instinctual fear anchor her feet in place. But she had to understand. She flipped the paper over, suppressing a cry as the fabric of her reality tore open.
Mom!
Jess cried, mixing her voice with the undulating shadows. The dark figure behind Sarah seemed to pulse, alive, anticipating her next move. As Sarah bolted, the trunk behind her forgotten for the moment.
Jess, come here.
She swept her arms wide, urging her daughter forward.
The time for retreat was gone.
The only way out was through the shadows and secrets. As Jess reached her, the attic trembled. The air turned electric,
sparking with a malevolence that crawled over their skin.
They needed to escape, but an unyielding force rooted Sarah in place, drowning out reason. The whispers grew to a deafening chorus.
"Find me, acknowledge me, not again,"
Sarah yelled, as she felt the shadows burrow closer, the air alive with rage.
"Mom, we need to leave."
Jess tugged at her sleeve, but Sarah couldn't move. There was something vital buried in this dark web of history, and unraveling these threads could cost them everything.
"What's coming after us?"
Jess's voice trembled, her innocence a bright contrast against the encroaching darkness. "Something we must face." As the shadows writhed, the familiar voice intertwined with the whispers, beckoning with rising urgency.
The figure twisted closer, reaching, extending a hand.
"Find me." Terror locked their feet, and Sarah felt the last vestige of hope dissolve.
Something had to give.
And just when she thought it was over, she noticed barely there a glimmer of light flickering at the edge of the attic.
Could it be an escape? Or another trap ensuring they never left?
The shadows closed in, whispering their secrets, ready to bind them both forever.
The flickering light drew Sarah's gaze, a beacon of possibility amidst the swirling chaos.
She strained against the oppressive shadows tightening around her, the dread clawing at her throat. "I have to try," she whispered, more to herself than Jess.
"Mom!"
Jess cried, panic spilling from her small voice.
"What if it's a trick? What if it wants us?"
Sarah felt her own heart race, each beat a drum signaling the dance of despair surrounding them.
The grotesque figure behind her drooped closer, its smile widening unnaturally, a predatory grin eager to taste fear.
"Find me." No. Sarah's breath hitched, and she gripped Jess' hand tighter.
"We can't stay here. We run to the light."
The shadows wailed, screeching in protest, trying to wrap around them, clawing at their ankles like disembodied fingers. But the light, it pulsated again, shimmering with an inviting warmth as if it recognized her struggle. With an abrupt tug, Sarah pulled Jess toward the glow. The attic shook, wood creaking ominously, the air swirling like a storm. Each step away from the trunk felt like shedding layers of frost that had crept into her bones, but the figure was relentless. "You need to acknowledge me," it hissed, voice a slithering whisper that seeped into the very fabric of her mind.
"Mom, please,"
Jess begged, her eyes wide, reflecting the terror in the dark.
"I can't take this anymore." Before Sarah could answer, the light flickered violently. Shadows slid backwards, revealing a door, hidden until now, its edges softly illuminated.
"Jess, we're going." They dashed forward. The thudding of Sarah's heart competed with the cacophony of whispers, echoing promises laced in venom. Just as they reached the door, a tangible darkness lunged at them, ribbons of shadow grappling at their legs. In an action driven by instinct, Sarah flung open the door, and a draft burst forth, carrying with it a cacophony of voices, a blend of cries, laughter, and murmurs that clawed at her sanity.
"Finish it!"
The darkness shrieked, clawing futilely at Jess, who was just ahead of her.
"Get inside, Jess,"
Sarah urged, shoving her daughter through. As she followed, the door slammed shut behind them, thundering with a finality that rattled her bones. They stumbled into a dimly lit room, walls adorned with blackened photographs, faces twisted in agony, shadows sharp against the surface. It felt like the remnants of every lost soul had echoed here, an unending gallery of despair.
"What is this place?"
Jess whispered, fear a thick fog in the air. In the center stood an altar, a solitary candle flickering, its slender flame a stark contrast to the chilling atmosphere. As Sarah circled it, her heart sank further. The altar was covered in symbols, ancient and foreboding, seeming to pulse in time with the flickering light. A shiver crawled down her spine, an unshakable sense of being watched. Then a voice surged from nowhere, resonating through the walls, deeper, more malevolent.
"You think you can escape?
You have not yet completed the cycle." Sarah felt the weight of her past come crashing down. The list, the photographs, it was all tied to this hideous ritual, a truth she was now forced to confront. Jess clutched her side, trembling.
"Mom, what are we supposed to do?"
"Finish what was started." The shadows from the altar twisted and turned, writhing like live wires, eager to inject them into the darkness once more.
With a breath of simmering dread, Sarah took a step toward the altar.
"I will find you, Evelyn," she vowed. All at once, the air grew thick and suffocating. Jess's gasp filled her ears as shadows lunged into the room, promising more than just despair.
They promised a reckoning. What would happen if she uncovered the truth? Could she face the darkness within?
Or would she become part of the very horror she sought to end? The shadows whispered, coiling around them. You've made your choice, and as the candle flickered ominously, a sharp crack echoed, leaving them suspended on the edge of a revelation.
In the depth of darkness, Sarah felt a pulse of dread. What horrors awaited them as the truth unraveled?
The candle's flame flickered violently, casting dancing shadows across the sinister room. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, the shadows seeming to pulse in time with each beat, as they writhed and twisted toward her, hungry for acknowledgement. Jess clung to her leg, trembling as the voice reverberated in the air, chilling and ancient.
You've made your choice. It echoed, an incantation dripping with malice. What choice?
Sarah spat out, her anger and fear mixing into a heady brew. She stepped forward, the coldness of the altar pressing against her. The cymbals vibrated, resonating with a truth she fought to suppress. She could feel the weight of the room pressing down on her, ghostly hands reaching from the walls, tugging at her clothes, begging her to remember.
Mom, don't.
Jess whimpered, but the words clutched Sarah's mind, twisting into her thoughts.
What had she buried deep within? What had been left unresolved?
I have to know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As her fingertips brushed against the cold stone of the altar, a vision erupted before her eyes. Evelyn. Tendrils of shadow coiled around a familiar figure, a small girl with dark eyes, mirroring Jess's innocent gaze.
Evelyn's laughter echoed, bright and carefree, yet disturbingly hollow.
The brightness of joy slashed through with memories coated in dread. Memories of late-night whispers, the frantic scratching of nails against wood, and the chilling urge to suppress the truth. Sarah heard a voice, soft at first, gaining strength.
You left me, Evelyn.
She gasped, staggering back, grasping her head like it might burst from the pressure of suppressed pain.
But the figure of Evelyn lingered, undeterred.
The altar's symbols began to glow, pulsating with the energy of every trapped soul, every sin, every hidden truth.
No. This isn't real.
Jess cried out, her small hands shaking violently as she pulled at her mother's leg.
Sarah's throat tightened, the terror palpable, the familiar darkness looming, eager to reclaim its trophy.
Finish what was started. The room sighed as if it were exhaling centuries of torment.
Shadows thickened, swirling dangerously around them.
Sarah could feel them tugging at her, luring her into something darker.
Jess, get behind me. Sarah commanded, summoning every ounce of courage she had left.
But Jess remained rooted to the spot, eyes wide and pleading.
Mom, please. Don't let it take you.
The shadows tightened their grip, almost laughing at the futile nature of their resistance.
Desperation surged through Sarah as she felt the darkness eating away her resolve, thick and suffocating.
I want to lose her too, she thought, battling the urge to succumb to the terror. In a moment of defiance, she steadied herself and screamed, I acknowledge you.
I acknowledge all of it.
The words crystallized in the room, displacing the whispers and turning the shadows into a writhing mass of rage and confusion. Staring right into that hollow, predatory grin, she spat, I will finish this.
The shadows shrieked in protest, recoiling as if stung.
In that heartbeat, Sarah glimpsed the altar's power. The candlelight burst forth, rainbows of hope encasing them like a shield. But it was fleeting. The shadows shrieked, rising in fury. They wouldn't let her go that easily. Suddenly, the photographs on the wall began to shift, the faces contorting in agony.
You belong to us.
They wailed, echoing the voice of what she had tried to forget. In that moment, the walls squeezed tighter, and the air pulled thick. She could feel Evelyn's presence. She was here, trapped.
Was this Evelyn's fate? Would she share the same old pain, or could she rewrite their story? No.
Jess screamed, her hands grasping her mother's as the room shook, the walls narrowing like a vice.
Find her. The shadows hissed. Find her at the cost of your soul. A new wave of fear gripped Sarah's heart as a chilling decision approached. What was she willing to sacrifice?
The darkness swirled more violently, and just as swiftly as it began, the air shifted again.
The candle flickered once more, revealing
something deep and uncharted within the dark doors waiting to be opened. But the question remained, would she dare step beyond the threshold, knowing the ancient horrors were still awake? The shadows rippled, the door is open, but what waits beyond may awaken the worst of all. The air turned icy, a chill creeping under Sarah's skin as she felt that unwelcome tug toward the door.
It loomed in the shadows, a lacquered black slab that whispered promises of darkness.
Jess's grip tightened, small fingers digging into Sarah's thigh, grounding her in reality while the shadows danced around them like wolves preparing to pounce.
Mom, please, please don't. We can leave. We can get out of here.
Jess begged, her voice quavering with the tremor of fear, but leaving didn't feel like an option. The door called to her like a siren, its darkness resonating with the echo of her buried guilt. Sarah fought the urge to turn away, feeling a magnetic pull as unresolved voices rose around her. It was as if a part of her longed to revisit the past, even knowing the pain it would bring. Finish what was started, echoed the voice again, more insistent, heavier.
I want tea.
She shouted defiantly, her voice echoing against the walls. But doubt seeped in like a dark mist.
What if there was a way to redeem Evelyn?
Could she really face the horrors that had intertwined their fates? Suddenly, a violent gust swept through the room, extinguishing the candleless light in an instant.
Shadows thickened, plunging them into impenetrable darkness.
Sarah's heart raced as she felt the breath of something unseen brush against her ear.
The door isn't the only thing open.
The weight of those words pressed down on her. What hidden truths had she invited into this place? With shaking hands, she fumbled for the candle, finding it cold and unyielding.
No!
She hissed, panic flooding her body.
We need light.
At that moment, the door shuddered as if something on the other side was desperate to break free. With each beat of her heart, the sound grew louder, scratches, claws, something alive. Jess whimpered again, her small body trembling.
Don't look at it, Mom. We have to go.
Jess was pulling at Sarah with a fierce urgency, but Sarah couldn't tear her gaze from that door. The scratches grew more frantic. She could feel the breath of the other side, cool and foul.
They want you.
The shadows hissed, their whispers coiling around her mind like serpents.
Join us. Find her.
Forcing herself to breathe through the rising tide of terror, Sarah finally broke her stare.
We're leaving,
she declared, clutching Jess's hand tightly.
Whatever you are, you want to have us.
But as they turned to retreat, something compelled her to look back one more time. As if the darkness heard her thoughts, the door cracked open, a narrow sliver of blackness filled with an unnatural light. Heaving breaths echoed from within, punctured by a childless laughter that turned to screams, then sobs. Evelyn, Sarah whispered, her heart aching.
Mom! Jess screamed, urgently tugging her away.
Please.
The shadows surged, swirling violently as if enraged by her hesitation. Sarah stumbled back, dragging Jess along with her.
I want to let you take us. I want to let you take her. Yet, the shadows tightened around them, pulling slowly, threatening to drag them down into despair. Sarah pressed her back against the wall, desperately searching for a way out as dread encroached. The photographs shivered and changed, faces screaming for freedom.
You know the truth.
They pleaded, echoing around her.
Will you face it?
Just then, with a sound like glass shattering, the door burst open wider. A figure shot out, cloaked in shadows, an echo of innocence drowned in darkness.
Mom!
Jess screamed again, terror etching itself on her face. As the figure drew closer, Sarah's resolve wavered.
No, she breathed.
Every alarm in her mind screamed for escape. The wrapped shadows pulled tighter, each syllable tugging her mind toward the figure.
Do it! Embrace the darkness! It beckoned, the voice unmistakable, dripping with a familiarity that chilled her to the core. What lay ahead? The line blurred between the past and the present. Was it too late for redemption? Could she truly carry the weight of her past?
In the confusion, reality twisted, and shadows broke into laughter, echoing Sarah's thoughts when she felt something begin to unravel.
Within her. Would she surrender to save her daughter, or risk it all to confront the nightmare awaiting her? The question lingered, heavy and ominous. What would she reveal when she dared to open her eyes?
The candle's flicker extinguished, burying Sarah and Jess in a thick darkness, every heartbeat echoing in their ears. In the oppressive quiet, panic flooded Sarah's mind. They were trapped, no light to guide them, just the whispers growing louder, pressing in from all sides.
Mom, we can't stay here.
Jess's voice trembled, pulling Sarah from the depths of her own spiraling fear. No, Sarah whispered, clenching Jess's hand harder.
We have to face this.
If I don't confront what is hiding in the shadows, if we don't finish this, it will never end. The shadows coiled closer, the temperature dropping. They were alive, twisting and writhing with a malevolent promise.
I want to let you take us.
Sarah shouted into the darkness, her voice breaking. But deep inside her, she felt the fraying threads of courage. The shadows laughed, the sound chilling her down to the core.
Mom!
Jess shrieked, tugging at her with desperate urgency, always the steady light pushing against the encroaching dark.
We can't give in. You promised we'd escape together. I will. Sarah's voice rang with newfound determination, and as if answering her resolve, a pinprick of light flickered back to life, a fragile glow emanating from the altar.
Find me, a voice echoed from the shadows, laced with sorrow and longing. Sarah's heart raced as she faced it, an overwhelming force pulling her toward the altar, toward the light.
Evelyn!
She cried, the name bursting forth from her throat as she stepped forward, courage sparking within.
I'm here. I will find you.
The shadows reacted violently, swirling in frustration.
You don't understand. Just acknowledge us. Embrace your pain. No!
Sarah shouted back, the words becoming a shield against the suffocating despair. I acknowledge my past, but I will not be bound by it any longer.
You will not take my daughter. As those words left her lips, the symbols on the altar flared bright, illuminating the room with a fierce, unyielding glow.
Sarah felt a rush of power, ancient and wickedly beautiful, as the whispers transformed into a chorus of wails, lost souls resonating through her being, begging for freedom. The door to the darkness loomed, still ajar. Jess whimpered, but clenched her mother's hand tighter, clinging to hope.
You have to do it, Mom. She encouraged, her voice steady, grounding Sarah in resolve.
Finish what was started. The figure called from the shadows, and Sarah's stomach twisted as she turned slowly toward the door of nightmares.
I will!
She exclaimed, squaring her shoulders. She took Jess's hand, weaving her warmth into her own.
Together. We face the past together. Stepping cautiously, they crossed the threshold into the dark, swirling mass.
The moment they entered, the shadows erupted, attempting to engulf them, but the altar's glow fought back relentlessly. In that swirling chaos, Sarah could feel the weight of every choice she'd ever made, the fear, the pain, the grief, but also love, resilience, and the strength of the connection with her daughter.
Come on!
Jess called, her voice unwavering, echoing around them.
We got this, Mom. Right. Sarah nodded, a fierce determination burning brightly within her core.
With every step forward, she felt herself breaking through. I'm not afraid. I will reclaim my story.
A dark figure surged toward them, but Sarah stood strong. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge Evelyn. I acknowledge all of it.
The words poured out like a cleansing flood, washing over the shadows, finding their mark.
No!
They roared in dismay, swirling violently, their hold loosening. Jess gasped, the light around them breaking through, scattering the dark that had haunted their steps for so long. In that moment, Sarah faced Evelyn, the little girl she now recognized, trapped within the shadows.
I see you, Evelyn. I'm here to help you. Sarah's heart swelled with understanding.
This was the moment. She would not let the darkness swallow them whole. Mom, help me, the little figure echoed, her voice a tremor of uncertainty, caught between fear and longing. As Sarah reached forward, she felt Jess beside her, an anchor against the
tide of evil. You're not alone.
She cried, reaching out for Evelyn, the light pouring from her words. The shadows writhed, roaring in anguish as Sarah took that leap of faith, wrapping her arms around Evelyn's trembling form. And in that embrace, everything shifted. Light erupted, a blinding, burning light that shattered the darkness, scattering the shadows like ash in the wind. Every scream, every shred of pain that had been buried beneath years of guilt began to lift, freed at last by the acknowledgement of their shared truths. Sarah and Jess stumbled back, shielding their eyes as the light exploded into brilliance, chasing the shadows into corners where they would finally be trapped, never to resurface. As the room dimmed back to stillness, Sarah found herself standing in the empty attic, Evelyn's figure gone, but the warmth of her presence lingered in the air. The shadows had dissolved, leaving behind only the memory of pain transformed into understanding. "We did it," Jess whispered, looking up at her mom with eyes shimmering with relief. "Yes, we did," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with love. "We faced the past together, and we made it through." Jess hugged her tightly, tears of relief shimmering like diamonds. They stood together for a moment, enveloped in the warmth of newfound hope, ready to step into the light of a future free from the chains of their past. Cedar Grove would continue with its whispers of shadows, but the power over them was broken. Hand in hand, they walked toward the door, knowing they had reclaimed their lives, sealing the shadows where they belonged, and as they exited into the soft light of the evening sun, freedom wrapped around them like a warm embrace. Heavy burdens lifted, and the promise of a new dawn ahead. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the channel, every action makes a difference. This is the moment to show your love and dedication.